I just think there's so much beauty and magic in taking our power back and going within ourselves to find our own happiness and fulfillment and guidance. Like, no one can take that away from you. When you stop relying on externals for all those things and can go from within, that does make you a dangerous woman in many aspects, because you don't need all the things that society is telling you that you need. And that is just going to just totally change the game. And I think where our society is heading, we are definitely heading into the season of the witch, and I am here for it. All right, I want to talk about something that is very appropriate for this time of year and something that I've been thinking about a lot over the past few years, and that is the use of the word witch. Now, as many of us probably have experienced or may believe ourselves in mass media, witch is seen as a negative thing, right? Like, think of every Disney movie made. It's this old, haggard woman, or it's the evil person in the story. That's usually that archetype, right? Well, in the past few years, and I feel like I've always believed this because I'm a Scorpio, my birthday's 5 days before Halloween, and I love all Halloween magical things. But I've just felt such a call to reframe that word in my mind. And I know a lot of people out there are doing the same. Like, there's a whole community out there exploring what the word witch means to them. So let's talk about that today. This is almost like a part 2 of a video I filmed last year where I talked about some witchy magical habits that I have started incorporating in my life. Today, I really just want to break down what that identity means to me and how it is just an identity that I've chosen to claim in this time and space, and that may change in the future, and that's okay. And also talk about something called the witch wound. So if you're interested in any of that, stay tuned. Also, if you didn't know, this is part of my series Vlogtober, where I've been posting a vlog every single day for October. And this witch talk is one of the most appropriate topics for October, talking about the word witch. So let's get into it. All right. So first off, let's talk about labels and identities. I feel like this is a time and space in our reality where people are obviously really questioning their labels and identities. We can see a lot of evidence of that in our society. For me, I like to be sort of almost playful with these different identities that I've chosen to take on in this time and space, like witchy and hippie, because we're always changing. We're always evolving. And I think it can cause a lot of suffering, unnecessary suffering, when you identify with one of these labels, and it could be anything, and then something happens in your life to make you totally question that identity. Just be okay with the idea that sometimes you may want to call yourself one thing, and then down the road you may not identify with that as much. I think that is totally okay, and I feel like it's becoming more normal, more accepted. But just know there's nothing wrong with you if you like to be just playful with these different identities. But let's talk about the word witch. It can be a very loaded term. To me, a witch is someone who's just very in tune with themselves, with their intuition. I call it your internal guidance, but the same thing with nature, and just like stepping back into their own power. Remembering that all guidance and love and support can come from within and not externals. And that can be a really tough thing to do in today's society. It is very in our face that everything is external. You should chase this. Your happiness comes from getting these things. And you should listen to all these other people, when really we can find the wisdom, the happiness, the joy, the freedom, all of that within ourselves. I also want to say that I know there's a lot of people, especially on YouTube and all social media, which is really cool that we can connect with so many people through this platform, right? That seriously practice witchcraft. I'm not the type of person that's doing all these different spells and putting salt on different things. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what aligns with me in this season. I just love that idea of what I explained a witch was just a few seconds ago. If someone's stepping back into their power and really connecting with their intuition and trusting themselves and just claiming that role, it's just a very freeing title and identity for me to claim. And that is why I love playing with that word a lot. That's why I use it a lot in my videos, and I start using it more in my day-to-day. I mean, you could just walk around my house and there's witchy things all around that I keep up all year, not just for Halloween. That's why I love October so much, because those things become more socially acceptable. But those things just resonate with me more as I've continued to grow and evolve as a person. And who knows, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, I may not resonate with that word as much, and that's okay. But right now, to me, it just means someone coming back to that connection with their intuition that they've always had and acting from that space, because there's a lot of craziness going up here in the mind. Our minds can be insane, and they're insane for all of us. There's nothing wrong with you. I'll link a video here where I talk about why we can't hear our intuition sometimes, because we're so mental, we're so up here, our society can be up here. But things are changing. We're stepping into a new age, the season of the witch, maybe some would call it, where we are moving from our heads into our bodies and remembering that we are a mind, body, soul, not just the mind, not just the body, but a soul as well, and reconnecting and reharmonizing all of those things. Another thing I want to say about the word witch is obviously it's associated with a feminine archetype. And let's just acknowledge the power that women have. Whether you decide to be a mother or not is like not as relevant to just this fact that we have the capability of creating life. Like all life came from a woman. And I just think that's such an interesting thing to ponder and tap into. I remember feeling it so strongly like a year before Arlo was born. I was like, man, women are so powerful. They literally create life. Now, like I said, whether you choose to be a mother or not, you still have that life force energy within you. I mean, males do too, to a degree, but obviously it's just different. But that life-giving energy to form, grow, and then support life afterwards is powerful. And that's an energy we can tap into all the time. That creative energy is something that is just so beautiful in women. And I feel like playing around with the word witch really has just helped me embody that energy more and just let my creativity out. I feel so much more aligned, so much more in tune with my soul, so much more fulfilled and happy when I am creatively expressing myself in some way. And that can be in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be like actually creating like a piece of artwork or music or even a video. It can be being creative as a mother with your children, just in how you're showing up as a mother. It can be being creative and just like a new way of approaching a situation. There are so many different ways we can be creative. Let's talk about one of the most important things to acknowledge when talking about the word witch. And I'm by no means an expert in this, but I've heard other people discuss it. And when I heard it, it made sense. And I was like, wow, that is definitely something that I feel like a lot of women can connect with and resonate with and feel on a soul level. And that is something called the witch wound. Again, I'm explaining it in my perspective. So if you have some expertise, leave it down in the comments. As women, sometimes we can have these mind stories, these limiting beliefs that we're not doing enough. Two ends of the spectrum. Either we're not doing enough or we feel fearful or unsafe to show up in our authenticity. Or maybe we just really struggle trusting ourselves. Like all those things I talked about in the beginning, what I think of as a witch, like maybe you struggle with all those things. A lot of people believe that that is connected to something called the witch wound. And obviously we know back in the day, a few hundred years ago, which really in the scheme of things isn't that long ago, they would hunt down and burn women because they thought they were witches, which I've been seeing this quote circulating social media right now, of course, because it's the season of the witch. It's October. And it says, they didn't burn witches. They burned women they couldn't control. And I was like, wow, that's intense. I'm sure true on many levels. I've heard many stories of like these women were healers in some way, or medicine women, or midwives. You know, they were just helping society in some way. And that was deemed as witchcraft. I think a lot of things that women do or people do in general can be deemed as witchcraft. And a lot of things happening in religions are very similar to witchcraft. Again, I'm not an expert in witchcraft. I just identify with the role and I love exploring it and being curious about it. That is like Lindsay to a T. She is curious about things and they pique her curiosity and she goes and explores them and reads about them. A book that I read at the beginning of this year that was super powerful, if you're interested in this, was called Witch. Unleashed, Untamed, and Unapologetic. I forget the author, but I will put it up right here so you can see. There are so many books on the word witch and witchcraft. Just walk into like Barnes & Noble or even your library, like they are becoming much more prevalent, which I think is really exciting and cool to see. Obviously, there's still people who have a lot of fear around that topic, and I try not to meet that judgment with judgment. I'm really trying hard not to meet judgment with judgment, which is hard. We like to judge by our nature. And I understand where that fear comes from. Like we said, it is part of just like the way the word has been used in mass media, and connecting it back to this witch wound thing. Some of us can really connect with this unhealed wound back from when they would actually hunt down and kill women, that like it's just not safe to be who we are. It's just not safe to show up in your authenticity. And it's not safe to trust one another, because a lot of times you would have to like turn in your sister or maybe a fellow woman in your community or whatever it may be. It just didn't feel safe to do any of those things. And I just feel like that's such an interesting concept to ponder if you relate to any of that, of just not feeling safe to be who you are or connecting with other women. It's part of that witch wound that all females can relate to in some way, because in the past it was truly unsafe to be who we were. And that feels very heavy. But obviously, like with all wounds, that's something that could be healed. And I always feel like the first step is just like being aware, being like, oh, you're right. It doesn't feel safe to be who I am. It doesn't feel safe to speak my truth or to trust myself or to truly have soul connections with other women. Or maybe you feel like you just have to compromise yourself to maybe people please others around you. These can all be connected back to that witch wound. And awareness is key. And just taking time to, I think some of the most powerful work is just connecting back to yourself, to your soul, to your internal guidance, to your intuition. Like doing those things that truly nourish your soul. And if it feels right, explore what that word means to you, because that's another interesting thing about words is we all just agree what words mean, right? But like it can mean something a little bit different to you than it does to me. And I personally think that is more than okay. Another thing that I heard one of my favorite witches talk about, Mia Magic, go and follow her on Instagram. She shares so much empowering witchy content. I love it so much. She talked about how we all have the inner witch hunter, which could be our mind or our ego. I mean, there's so many different names for it, right? But we can be our own worst enemy. Hello, that has been me this past year. I have been my own worst enemy to the max. Like just telling myself that I don't have time to do the things I want to do, or like, who am I to show up in this way? Not trusting myself, not feeling safe to speak my mind and share my voice. And I feel like I've made so much progress in that. And if you feel the same way too, know that there's nothing wrong with you, and just take a baby step towards connecting with yourself on a deeper level, or take a baby step of exploring your own witchiness. I think we all are witchy on one way or another. Like we obviously all have intuitions. So that makes us have that witchy aspect. And just connecting with that intuition is literally the most powerful work I've ever done, and has helped me create the life that I love so much. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of the word witch? How do you apply it in your life? Like I said, I know there's a lot of people out there that hardcore practice witchcraft, and I think that's awesome. I practice it in my own Lindsay way. Again, reference that other video I was talking about if you're interested. I just think there's so much beauty and magic in taking our power back and going within ourselves to find our own happiness and fulfillment and guidance. Like no one can take that away from you. When you stop relying on externals for all those things and can go from within, that does make you a dangerous woman in many aspects, because you don't need all the things that society is telling you that you need. And that is just going to just totally change the game. And I think where our society is heading, we are definitely heading into the season of the witch, and I am here for it. Like this video if you enjoyed this and want more witchy content. Again, comment down below with any of your takeaways or how you are a witchy person yourself. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any of those daily videos for Vlogtober. And I'm sending you all so much love, all the high vibes and the spooky vibes, and I'll see you in the next Vlogtober video.